Hello and welcome along to another episode of this FM21 Build a Nation story from Bangor City with me, Daniel. It's part 143 today, and we start the new week not with the new season, but with our next 5-year bookmark in the story, because at the end of last week we reached 15 years in charge at the club, and of course over the last 5 years, as well as the club taking further steps, towards the end of it, we've seen the nation lift off as well. So if you're looking forward to seeing our latest bookmark in the story, we'll look at some of your requests as well, such as the icons, legends and favoured personnel at the clubs, some of the facility changes across other teams in the league as well, and I've deliberately gone through to the day where the season ticks over so we can see if anyone else has gone pro too. Probably the only difference to the last time we did this is we won't have so much of a look at the coefficient, because to be honest, we've done that throughout the last 2 years as we've got close to taking big steps. So if you have missed any of the story so far, you can find it up in the eye above, as well as all of the other stuff too. We had a brand new experiment from Wales starting yesterday, so you can find that up there as well. But if you're looking forward to this one and the latest bookmark, please chuck a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe down below for daily content every weekday from this series, as well as some weekend specials. And then also in the eye above, we've got a link to the Twitch channel for regular live streams and the podcast channel where we're back for a new football season. But let's start today by having a look at the Welsh Premier League itself, because rather than building the club this time, we've been building the nation the last 5, a lot more so than focusing on Bangor City. So let's start on this occasion actually by having a look at how the league's progressing. Because of course one of the big things that's happened over the last 5 years, and particularly the last 2 years for those of you that have been following, is more and more sides have been turning professional. Weirdly, a lot of the sides that have been in the second tier some of the time, but also in the last year we saw Barrytown United go pro, we saw a couple more of the sides that were in the Welsh Premier League go pro, and some of those who are professional and yo-yoing between the two have come back up. We'll have a look in a minute though to see if the likes of Barrytown United and Aberystwyth have joined them. In terms of stadiums though, we've not really seen any development yet, only Nantporth which has crept up slightly. There are bigger ones in a sort of second and third tier, we've seen that before. When it comes to the sort of experiments and that, it's not often the top tier sides that get the stadium changes first. In terms of the transfer windows, we've seen an awful lot more in Wales in the last couple of years. Nothing yet this season, but of course other clubs starting to make some moves in the transfer window. Barrytown United spending 200 grand on a domestic transfer recently. TNS starting to get lots of little deals in. So for the first time, it hasn't just been us this season. Before that, it was only really Haverfordwest that had ever spent any money, which seemed really odd. So great to see a couple of others getting involved on that now. But it hasn't really translated on the pitch just yet. The other side's still a lot weaker, to the extent where we probably had our best domestic season last year. However, the big change has come in terms of the Welsh League's reputation. Now the 20th ranked competition above the second tier in Italy, the second tier in Spain, almost up with a championship. It's really starting to make shockwaves now. 3-star reputation league, almost 3.5. We could be on the cusp of greatness on that side of things. We'll have a little bit more of a delve into that side later on. But let's firstly have a look at some of these other clubs and see their reputation changes. Let's also see what their facility changes are like, and whether the likes of TNS have invested any of that money yet from last season. It'll be really interesting to find out. But let's start first with Aberystwyth and Bala, who are the two real bigger sides that haven't yet gone professional. So Bala Town qualified for Europe this year, still semi-pro though. So I'm hoping they'll have a decent season. If they can sneak to the group stages, they'll definitely go pro. But I'm not sure they're quite at that stage yet, unfortunately. Aberystwyth, on the other hand, still semi-pro, sliding gradually down the league. But there are a few professional teams in the league. So let's count it this season. It was 6 last year. This time we've got ourselves. Airbus not there, I'm afraid. Barrytown United are. And they have got Europe this season. They won the playoff from the end of the year. So that was one positive to come from it. Cardiff Met Uni always stay an amateur. Carmarthen have come up, they're professional, but they're worrying financially, so we'll keep an eye on them. Colwyn Bay have stayed pro, despite having 2 years in a row without European football. Haverfordwest back up, they've stayed professional. Newtown, still professional after coming up the year before. Swansea Uni, amateur, and in TNS are definitely pro. And they've gone up to 2-star reputation with secure finances too. So I'm hoping that will start to get invested off the pitch. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that are now professional. The best ever we've had in Wales so far. And if Bala can follow after this season in Europe, that would be a massive moment for this save. If we look at TNS though as our main port of focus, I'm not sure this stuff will have happened yet because we're too early on after them getting the money. But they did have their big European run last season. They reached the group stages for the first time, long enough in waiting as well, and they got all the way through to the last 16 in the Europa Conference, which is a massive, massive run, beating the likes of Mainz as well. Huge achievements. They haven't got an affiliate club in terms of the senior level, but they have got a bit of money in the bank now. So I'm hoping this is the window, albeit it might happen a bit later on, that they really go all out for it, because they've got a chance to make something special happen now and compete with us at the top of Welsh football. In terms of some of the others, Haverfordwest are the ones that normally spend the money, albeit they've been a bit of a yo-yo club in this save, so I'm not going to expect too much from them too soon. But they've kept their finances in check as well, so maybe facilities-wise, they've not really spent anything there other than the academy coaching. But they must be the sort of club that just spends all their money on the pitch. It's a bit of an odd one, really. I'm wondering with Cardiff Met Uni, albeit an amateur side, they're probably more likely to have had the off-pitch developments because they're not going pro, they're not spending the money there. And they have. So they've now got basically average facilities and coaching across the board, only the youth recruitment slightly behind. So that's one of the positives from them not going pro. And maybe that'll happen with some of the other clubs as well. Barrytown United, the ones that have gone pro and started spending more of their money on the pitch. However, they have now probably got the manager outside of myself with the best attributes in the league. Danny Granger, a player well known, came in partway through last year. But have they upgraded facilities? Not really. It's only the academy coaching again. So a little bit to go for some of these sides. Swansea Uni did really well last year. Hopefully again off the pitch they're improving. And although their finances are secure, they're marked in yellow, which would suggest that there's a potential investor coming in. Now, what I'd love to see with Cardiff Met Uni or Swansea Uni, if they get taken over, are they still an always amateur side? I guess we won't get to find that out just yet. But they're now a side that are in the third qualifying round of the Europa League. So one win in qualifying in that one or the playoff round of the Europa Conference, and they're into the group stages. A massive development for them. And I guess that's my hope, looking at this side of things, is that they will start to compete as teams, particularly TNS, particularly Barry if they can get European group stage football, and maybe even some of the sort of university ones as well, that they can finally start to push forward and hopefully make a challenge domestically. Even if it's just some of the cups and things like that, it would make a big step up for the next year or two until they can really get their feet in under the table. But this year, if Bala can do well and go pro, that would be the next step for the league. Let's have a look at ourselves as a club though, because there have been developments with us. We've gone up to 3-star reputation. We're obviously rich at the moment and we've got our best ever squad. We've had some brilliant youth intake stars who we are going to have to make big decisions on. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But let's have a look at our facilities and how things are going on, because we are basically perfect now. The reason I save a lot of the money aside is because every couple of years we have to have a big upgrade to training or youth facilities as they drop down with technological advances. However, my big thing long term is I want a new stadium before this save finishes. As we push further in Europe, as the league reputation increases when a few of the other sides come up, I'm hoping around that 20-year mark, just before FM22, we'll be able to finish by getting a big stadium to end on that's a 5-figure capacity. That's what I'm hoping for at the end of this. In terms of affiliates, we've tried a few times, never really had any luck, but we've got a few sort of affiliate clubs further down the tiers. And Afton Lido, one that we've sent plenty of players to before. Shame they've never really come up either, although it probably would end the link. What most of you have been asking for though, is to know who the legends are at the club, where we stand at the moment. So let's go back to this screen here. But what I will do very quickly is just move my head so you can see them. So here we go. For the first time, my head is in the top middle of the screen. I'm not trying to steal the show, I promise you, because I want to show you the fact that I am now a club legend. And not only me, one of our current players has made it as well, and that man is Kane Walters. After one dodgy season has got back to his best now, and he's made it into the legends screen. Is very heavily weighted towards attacking players at the top end. Max Dean and icon Joe Duffy as well, they've both been league record goal scorers. Kyo Bulkley, one of the youngsters, only what, 21 now? 20 years of age, already made it there. Are just by far the best player we've ever produced. Hopefully Whelan will challenge that towards the end of the save. But he's world class and he's playing for Bangor City. It's incredible really. Favour personnel just weighted towards any striker that's had a good season. McKinnon, Loza, Goulding, all up there. Tom Jones, another one of the youth intake stars. That's great to see. And then finally, a few of the defensive legends. Kai McDonald, Yes Den Weaver, John Price, bizarrely, and George Wickens. Because Price hasn't played more games over the year than like Harvey Lloyd, for example. So if we put it into comparison, Price here since 2028. So 7 seasons at the club, 109 league games and a backup in Europe. If I show you Harvey Lloyd as an example of what I mean, he's made 157 appearances. He's become a Welsh international while here, and he's starting regularly as a better player. So I have no idea where John Price comes from above some of those. It's one of those odd ones I can't explain, but regardless, he is in there. And so far, I'm just happy to be a club legend. Now let's go and see if any of them have broken the records and move my head back to where it should be. Okay, so records. Most league goals by a player is Joe Duffy on 178. However, Kane Waters is getting closer. Now, he's not going to get there quite as quickly because he's getting rested for a lot of league games, being first choice in Europe. And we're getting further in Europe than we were when Duffy and Dean were here. However, he scored 20 or more in each of the last 4 seasons and 19 the year before that since joining. So he's now on 115 league goals. And actually, how old is he? He's 26 years of age. So, providing he doesn't get overtaken to the extent where he has to leave the club, he's probably going to get there pretty soon. And actually, it almost benefits him from a league record point of view if he gets overtaken as first choice, because then he'll play more league games instead of the others who are getting rested for Europe. So it could be a blessing in disguise for him, but regardless, he's been brilliant. The start league appearances is still Sean Edwards on 323, but my interesting point on that is that presumably there's going to be a few players that get close here. So Tom Jones is on 221 at the age of 23. No doubt he's going to break it. It's just whether he can do it in the next 4 or 5 years. Now, based on the fact that he's 102 behind, you'd expect him to do that in 4 seasons if you add in room for a couple of month-long injuries. If he gets a big injury or something like that, we might be in trouble. But at the moment, it looks like Tom Jones is the man who's going to make it. 3 years behind him, obviously, is Kyo Bulkley. He's going to find it a little harder because, one, he wasn't getting quite as much football because of injuries. He's got a recurring knock. We have to rest him for a few league games. He goes away for the international breaks, whereas Tom Jones often doesn't. So Bulkley might find it harder to break that. So ironically, it's Tom Jones who might break the record, despite being the least good of the youngsters left at the end. In terms of records, Peter Holding's still the youngest player and still out on loan at Huddersfield. In terms of transfers, our record signing and our record sale were both the same player in the last 5 years. Ahmet Bektas, the man, signed for $6.5 million from Huddersfield. Weirdly, in the same summer, he joined them on a free, got frustrated because they didn't sign a player to help him bed in. We got him for that, thought, is it a bit too much? And then he got sold on for $3 million more, as his release clause was met the summer after. And ironically, he might yet be coming back this year, but we'll focus on that in the next episode. The big thing from a club point of view, though, and we mentioned it in the last episode of last season, is the squad for next year. We have got by far the strongest squad we've ever had in this save. However, we've now got the stage with another great youth intake, where there are probably 5 players that could contribute to the first team that have barely had a kick this year. Now, thinking further forward in Europe about training players at the club or the nation, I'm thinking really long term about having half a homegrown team or really helping out the rest of the nation with these players. I'm looking at some of these, particularly the likes of Whelan and Jennings and Gethin Davis, and obviously Bulkley and Jones as well. I'm thinking, are we at the point now where we have to weaken our squad slightly to benefit our youngsters and give them a route in? So, for example, next year, do we keep Jennings and Whelan as our backup centre-halves, or at least one of them as a first-choice backup and loan out the other perhaps? But that would then mean getting rid of either Pasiarek or Scott McKenzie. Now, McKenzie's 26, he's a backup, he's not homegrown, and he's not really getting much football. So surely he's then a candidate to go, despite being significantly stronger at this point. The same for Patrick Malone in midfield in comparison to a Bellis or a Blake or a Davis. We're only holding back our youngsters by keeping slightly better backups. And Patrick Malone last season, I think he barely played a game. So are we being unfair now on those players who could go on and have a good career, could also probably bring in $1 million or 2 each to the club, and to the youngsters that are sitting there chomping at the bit to get in a team? And I mean, in the case of Davis and in the case of Mubarak Whelan, and probably even for Jennings as well, in fairness, they're not a million miles behind at all, and I feel like I can't afford to hold them back anymore. Yes, it means we probably will lose the odd game in the league still, but while we're significantly stronger, which for the next 2 or 3 years we still should be, is it my duty to get them in the team? Or do I try everything possible to get them to another professional club in Wales? Although for some reason that doesn't seem to be happening because of the reputation gap. Maybe TNS could do it now. So that's my real thinking point for the summer. That's just given me a little bit of a sticking point, to be honest. But we'll get a solution to that and come back for the season. I'll be interested to get your thoughts on that side of things, though. In the very meantime, before we go, though, I've got to show you how the English and Scottish football pyramids are looking. You'll always complain if I don't. So let's start with the English Premier League. Any big surprises 15 years in? Arsenal are the holders. 2 titles in 5 years after a dominant spell for Chelsea ended. City and United got 1 each. Few clubs in the Premier League that will be very happy with it, particularly to see both Sheffield clubs up there is a nice touch. And the English League's still the most reputable. I think we lost in the Europa League, didn't we, to Newcastle? They got to the final in the end against Arsenal, I believe, and West Ham were one of the semi-finalists. So England is dominating Europe across the competitions, and we've seen that whenever we face the opposition. Let's head down to the Championship quickly. Are there any massive surprises? So Luton's still in there, excellent stuff. Of course, Southampton, Palace, the likes have come down. But I'm looking for ones that are miles out. So obviously Cambridge, League 2 side at the start of the game, went up in real life. They're now in the Championship here. But I don't think there's any other massive shocks. Crewe 1 division, Pompey 1 division back up. Nothing major though. So the big one is Cambridge United. And have they been up there long? Bit of a yo-yo club. I think Joe Duffy went there, didn't he, a few years back. On to League 1. Have we got any big ones? Chesterfield always seem to fly up the leagues in this save. They did the same in the head coach and are now in League 1 again here. I think they had a stint in the Championship as well. They didn't. That must have been the head coach save. Morecambe are still in there. Notts County back up from the National League. Solihull Moors in League 1. And they've had a few very good years. So they went up in League 2 2030. So when we came back for our last bookmark. And they've stayed in there all 5 years. So really good to see them doing well. They're a good professional side and they're improving off the pitch. They've got state-of-the-art youth facilities and excellent youth recruitment. The rest of it, no massive shocks. Millwall down a division, Rotherham down a division from the start, the same for Wickham. But nothing major in there apart from that. On to League 2. I just want it to be a massive one, like a Premier League club that's ended up down there or something, but doesn't seem to have happened. So Blackpool down a division, Wimbledon the same, Barnet up 1. Chester are up 2. They were from the National League North. AFC Fylde the same. Plymouth down a division. York up 2. Wrexham up 1. Nothing spectacular again. Considering we're 15 years in this is. So Basingstoke in the National League up 2 divisions. Accrington down 2. Cheltenham down in there as well. But I think Accrington and Burton Albion possibly the biggest surprises. Northampton, Mansfield. So Northampton will be down 2. Mansfield 1, Newport 1. Interesting. A few surprises in the National League perhaps. And in the National League North and South, we've got Barrow down 2 divisions. That's exactly the same as the head coach was. But no other sides, I don't think, that started in the Football League. And in the South, finally, although Mansfield only just won the North, so they must have had a little fall from grace. And in the South, any Football League sides in there? I don't think so. A fair few that started in the National League, but not too much else. So the National League North and South, no major shocks. Let's go and have a look at Scottish football instead. Rangers and Celtic sharing out the titles nicely as we've gone along after an early spell of dominance for Celtic. Any big shocks in there, apart from Raith Rovers being one of the dominant forces? They're not far off the title now. 3rd or 2nd every year. Greg Pringle starring. He's not even a key player anymore. They've signed Helder Martins, a Portuguese player, who as a young winger is absolutely fabulous. He joined from Porto last year. That's the level they're at now. And the Scottish League, as a few have mentioned, up to 6th in the competition reputation. And we've seen Raith in the Champions League group. They've got 3 or 4 sides in there some years. It's absolutely incredible. Dunfermline up in the top tier as well. They'd had a few barren years at the start of the save. Let's look down in the Championship. Queen's Park up a couple of divisions. Cove Rangers still in there. Hearts still stuck in the Championship. Kilmarnock down there too. Let's have a look at League 1. Falkirk still in League 1. Partick Thistle down in League 1. Morton in League 1. A few sides that have dropped down a division. I still wouldn't say anything majorly spectacular though. And League 2, Arbroath, one of our head coach clubs that have dropped down. Queen of the South down a couple of divisions. Quite a big one. And maybe a couple of surprise sides that are in there. I think Brechin not in the leagues by the looks of it. And to be fair, there's probably the most shocks in that league rather than any other. But that's how English and Scottish football looks. That's the stage that our club and our nation are at. It's going to be a really interesting summer. I think I'm going to have to part ways. A bit like we had it around 7 or 8 years ago, where we had to let the likes of Luca Cannell, Cameron Badabo, Daniel Williams, Ben Cottrell, Joe Duffy, Max Dean all move on over the space of 18 months. And I think we're going to have to do it again here in terms of some of our backups. Maybe the likes of Mackenzie's, your Malones, your John Prices. They're the sort of ones that we've got to let on. George Wicken's even the keeper, now at 33. So probably in terms of the backups, a little bit more of an overhaul again. But instead of going out and spending loads on big players, we're probably in a position now where we can finally promote from within. We've earned that right. We've built that youth system. And it's finally going to pay dividends. So if you're looking forward to seeing what the next 5 years bring, we'll be live every weekday with new videos. Please do put a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe down below for regular content. You can find some other specials at the weekends up in the eye above, including our new Welsh experiment which started yesterday. There's also links up there to the podcast channel and our Twitch channel where we've got regular live streams. But a massive thank you for watching, for joining me for another little bookmark in this series. And the next 5 years should be the biggest because Welsh football is starting to take off. I'll see you next time. Well, one day and 2 clothing changes later, I'm back with some bonus footage at the end. Those of you that have stuck along will get to see the thing that I almost forgot to show you, and the one that gets often asked. It's the manager profile. We're almost up to 4-star reputation now. A National B licence, they're still not letting us take training courses. They're saying that we need to be on the training ground and we can't do a coaching badge, despite the fact we've got about 15 or 16 senior coaches now. But we're on almost 10 grand a week. We've still got 3 years left on our contract. And most of the managers at the sort of higher level have a really good reputation of us. And actually Pep Guardiola's still right up there. Michael Galt, is he the one at Linfield? He was beforehand. We had a bit of a friendly rivalry with him. And a few of the sort of local managers not happy with us. But probably because of our attitude and our dominance. Our attributes looking really good. Particularly on the mental side. And working with youngsters, of course. But really progressing nicely. We're getting interest for some big jobs. We got offered an interview at Spurs last summer. The biggest one we've had in a career so far. So I'm interested to see how that continues to develop over the next 5 years. But so far, looking very good on that front. The win percentage, if we can do a bit better in Europe, might pass 80% as well. So lots to look forward to, but I'll see you next time. This time, it is the end of the episode.